It's October, the month of Halloween, and all throughout the month I am going to be bringing you creepy, scary games. And also lighthearted fun ones. As long as they carry with them the theme and overall feel of Halloween, they are fair game. And what says Halloween more than monsters on your bed, in your closet, or out in the hallways? That's right, it's another installment of the franchise that's too brilliant for its own good, Five Nights at Freddy's 4. So by this point, the franchise had erupted in popularity. Well, I mean, it was always popular, but by the release of this one, we're talking merchandise, action figures, party favors, backpacks, plushies, which have been talked about on this channel once or twice. Definitely twice. But no more than 3 times. Anyways, so what's in store for us with this 4th outing? Well, a lot of the same, actually. You still check for Freddy and the gang getting closer to your location, but now it's done in a unique and different way. Which is exactly what a good sequel should do. Give you something familiar, but go about it in a way that you're not expecting. Instead of playing as a security guard in an office, you are a little kid in a bedroom trying to survive the night from nightmare versions of the Fazbear crew. So how do you ward these guys off anyway? You have a flashlight, and this time it won't run out of batteries, and you use it to get those creepy little frettles off your bed, because if you let them gather too long... Yeah, unfortunately you're gonna need more than a flashlight to deal with the others. A big part of this game is just listening. If you go over to the door and hear breathing, it means that something is out in the hallway. If that's the case, then you have the option to close the door until it goes away. And Foxy? Foxy is just a waiting game. Just like in the first one, actually, now more than I think about it. A new feature that I thought was a great addition was the mini game where you have to get plush trapped to land on the X. And if you're successful, you get to skip ahead a few hours during the next night. And back are the Atari-style cutscenes to provide you with what everyone is waiting for, more lore to confuse and satisfy your curiosity for the simple thought of where in the world is this all going? So at the time, this was marketed as the final Five Nights at Freddy's game. So when you're playing through it, there's this feeling of everything wrapping up nicely. Of course, looking back in hindsight, yeah, we should have known more games were coming. But I still say that this game is great and an awesome game to play on Halloween. Ever since the early 80s, there's been one green plumber who has lived in his brother's shadow. In fact, if your first exposure to Mario was Super Mario Bros. And you were an only child, you might have wondered, why is it even called Super Mario Bros. To begin with? Seeing as how you could only see Luigi if you were playing 2-player. As a kid, I always preferred Luigi over Mario. He had a solo mission in the 90s that really wasn't that good. But when Nintendo announced that their newest console, the GameCube, along with its release, came the tall plumber's first time to shine. This is such a fun game to play around Halloween, or any time of the year for that matter. Right away, this game sets up the mood perfectly. Luigi walks through some creepy woods. He comes upon a house. He cautiously walks up the stairs. He opens the door, and of course, he gets scared. So Mario has disappeared, and it's up to his brother to search this haunted mansion in order to rescue him. But he has an advantage, befriending the scientist Professor Egad, who I always called the Hamburglar. I mean, come on, he says robble robble.
Yabble yabble.
So Professor Egad hooks Luigi up with the Poltergust 3000, which turns our favorite plumber sidekick into a Ghostbuster, and now he is more than capable of scouting the house and sucking up all the ghosts in his way. The mansion consists of many different types of apparitions. You have the casual run-of-the-mill ghosts, the classic boos that are hiding in each room once you set them free, and the house residents who sometimes require a little bit of thought to defeat. Like for example, when in Melody's room, she plays a piece of Mario music and you have to guess what it is. Or Chauncey, not Chansey, but Chauncey, who is a full-on boss battle in a supersized baby crib. But you can also get power-ups for your vacuum that will make things easier, like being able to shoot fire, water, and ice. And while some of these power-ups can be used to defeat ghosts, most are just used to complete obstacles in your way. A secondary goal, other than saving Mario from his portrait prison, is collecting money. All throughout the mansion is a fortune in dollar bills, bricks, and diamonds. And keep an eye out for that yellow mouse, which will give you a lot of rarities. Ultimately, you want to get as much as you can, because it will dictate what type of mansion you can build at the end of the game. One of the things I love about this game is how many creative puns they can come up with for the booze names. You get titles like Bamboo, or Boolicious, or my personal favorite, Game Boo Advance. I hope someone got a raise for that one. So if you're looking for a fun game to play this Halloween and don't want something too scary, but in the feel of spooky family fun, give Luigi's Mansion a play. Be brave, little plumber. Be brave. Until Dawn is such a setup for a classic horror movie. We got teenagers in a cabin, a mysterious person outside. Yeah, you basically know what you're getting into. But to its credit, it's still an enticing and fun experience. So what do we got going on here? Well, a group of friends are invited to a getaway event in the mountains orchestrated by, just a little bit off, Josh. And of course, being stereotypical teenagers, they do exactly what you expect them to do.
No one wants in on your territory, honey.
Excuse me? Did you say something?
Oh, did you not hear me? Was your sluttiness too loud?
Listen, dude, look around you. Look at these beautiful mountains. Do you see any parents? I mean, can you imagine a more perfect, ripe scenario just dripping with erotic possibilities? You and Ashley alone at last.
So of course, naturally things don't go as the characters want them to, and all 8 of them are separated. What follows is multiple different storylines, finding clues, getting jump scared, and just trying to survive. Now, on the surface, it looks like you're playing a movie with not much control. And that's mostly true, but there are moments when you walk the characters around and interact with the environment. And QuickTime events play a part too. So always be on your guard. But the number one thing that really drives the narrative are your own choices. Throughout the game, you'll be given actions for what you want the players to do, and based on what you decide will be played out on screen. And this is the one thing that makes Until Dawn so enticing. The ability to choose the character's decisions brings so much replayability to the game. Like, let's say that you play the game and every character makes it to the end. Well, you can then restart the game and test out, you know, what would happen if this character died? Or this one? Judging by who lives and who dies, the game's story is changed. For example, let's say that you point the gun at Chris. Then later, Ashley will save Chris's life. But if you choose to point the gun at Ashley, then she will leave Chris outside to get his head ripped off. Stuff like that is mind-boggling because it makes you wonder just how many different outcomes does the game have. One thing that does stick out for me is how the story shifts in the middle. Now, I'm not going to give anything away, but the first act and part of the second act is completely different than what's being given to you in the third act. It's like if you were watching The Notebook and then halfway through it becomes Aliens. It's just a shift. I mean, it's not bad or anything, but it does make you wonder what the thought process was. Were 2 different stories just put together? And the inclusion of Dr. Hill at the end of each chapter is so cerebral. The decisions you make with him will subtly impact something in the game when you return to it. It also makes you question his purpose in all of this. Is everything happening at the same time? Is it after the fact? Or is he not even real at all?
Huh. Once again, I'm afraid we're out of time. We'll talk again soon.
Now there's one more thing to bring up. The motion capture and the character modeling is spot on. I mean, sure, it has a sense of Uncanny Valley, but look at Josh here. Okay, now look at the actor Rami Malek. What? He looks identical! If I were to walk up to him on the street, I would immediately say, "You're from Until Dawn," not realizing that the person I'm referring to is a CGI character. That's how good the models look in this game. I mean, granted, in 15 years when the PlayStation 7 is out, we're going to look back and think these graphics suck. But man, 2015, you made some high-class art. So all in all, I had a blast playing this game. It's fun, it's engaging, and it really gets you excited to see what's going to happen next. I recommend getting a bunch of friends together and playing as a group, because it really makes it interesting with everyone chiming in on the decisions they think should be made. And if you make the correct choices, hopefully you can get everyone to survive. Until dawn. Okay, have you ever in your life wondered what you would get if you combined a Ghostbuster, a Jedi, and Jessica Rabbit together? No? Well then that is perfectly understandable, because none of us would have thought of that. But if you did, yeah, you would get a character just as awesome as you would think you would get. That's where Ryoko comes in, the main character of the series Ghost Sweeper. Dangerous, beautiful, and 100% badass. So from what I gather, her anime is basically about capturing ghosts and sending them off to the afterlife. And in 1993, it was decided to bring her adventures to the Super Nintendo. Or rather, the Super Famicom. Yeah, this is one of those titles that only got released in Japan, and I wish I could tell you what they're saying, but unfortunately I don't read Japanese. But I do know good gameplay when I see it. Ghost Sweeper is a side-scrolling adventure platformer, and I love those types of games! You control Ryoko as she goes around using her baton to fight off various spirits. I noticed she's also pulling a Jurassic World by running in high heels, because that's a smart thing to do when you're being chased by something scary. Oh wait, this came out first. So was Jurassic World technically pulling a Ghost Sweeper? So the spirits you have to fight come in all shapes and sizes, such as creepy floating girls, zombies, Thing from the Addams Family, and, some people who really need to be in a registered database. Saka! So you might take one look at Ryoko's baton and think, well, that's nowhere near as cool as it is in the anime, and you would be absolutely correct. But you can find various power-ups to make it better, and also use a move that draws in all the surrounding enemies. The boss battles are a lot of fun and all have to do with some kind of spirit. They're not too difficult as long as you pick up on the patterns. The level design is kind of basic, but there are a few stages that will change it up a little bit and surprise you. Like level 3, when a spirit appears in Ryoko's office and shrinks her down. Then you have to play the next level on the back of a running cat. Well, that's pretty creative. Or another level where they just decide to put her on a broom and fight in the sky. The only downside is that she can't attack behind her, so you have to plan your moves carefully when you're attacking the boss. So as I stated before, this game was a Japan exclusive, and that's a shame because I really think the rest of the world back then would have enjoyed this game. But maybe it was because anime didn't really have much of a presence in North America back then, and they thought that the general gaming public wouldn't accept it. I don't know, but I think it would have done okay. If you're nostalgic for a good side-scroller from the 16-bit era, you need to play this title. It's a game that has been sadly overlooked. Now here's an overlooked gem for you. Mr. Bones is a title from the short-lived Sega Saturn. You play as a man who died and is resurrected as a skeleton and goes by the name of Mr. Bones. So all these dead people were brought back to life by the evil Dagulian, who wants to rid the world of everything good. Honestly, with a motivation like that, he would make a perfect Care Bear villain. So he uses his supernatural drums to awaken the dead as his minions, but Mr. Bones, as shown with pure blue eyes in contrast to everyone else's evil red eyes, is seen as a mistake.
You are an impurity. Hey, let's not get personal now.
And so he commands his army of evil skeletons to destroy him. But Mr. Bones comes upon a musician in the woods, and after they have a jamming session, he gives him one of his guitars. Using this guitar gives Mr. Bones the ability to fight off Dagulian's advances, such as performing for evil skeletons changing their eyes from red to blue. But this isn't a weapon that he can use in the levels. It only appears in minigames and cutscenes, when he needs to break the hold over someone. The gameplay is pretty basic for the normal levels when Mr. Bones just has to jump from one platform to another, but is constantly being changed up. Like in one level where he loses all of his bones and is just a hopping skull and spine, and another, which is a real trip, has him bouncing around on a large version of his head, and when you recover part of his body, the camera will zoom out and you'll be on another large version of his head with the one body part you just recovered. Man, who thought of this? And did you ever think you would see a skeleton swim? Or battle a giant dead bird who looks like the Mouser boss from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? That's a first for me. The game's level designs are really creative, and I have to hand it to the team behind them because normally in platformers, the levels tend to repeat and feel very similar to each other, but each level has its own unique look and feel. In one, you could be running down a hill trying to escape from logs, while another, you're in the talons of a bird flying through a church's stained glass windows. And you know what? I don't think I've ever seen a level in a church done this way before. And as for the log level, it's kind of hilarious when you break it down because Mr. Bones is in a state of panic, and there's this nice relaxing country music being played in the background. It totally doesn't fit with what's going on, but it's incredibly funny. In fact, that's how the entire game is. You can tell it's going for scary, but it's also self-aware about how over the top it is, so you can't help but enjoy every moment of it.
What did the Zen master say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything.
So it's been 22 years since Mr. Bones has been in a video game, and he is well overdue for a comeback. Sega, come on. I know you have a file somewhere of all the people you've worked with. Call them up. Whoever's out there who owns the rights for Mr. Bones, you have to bring him back. Come on, other video game characters have come back from an even longer hiatus. Someone? Anyone? Bring back Mr. Bones. So, I have a love-hate relationship with Eddie Murphy's Haunted Mansion. On the one hand, I did go see it 3 times, but that's only because I love the Haunted Mansion. But on the other hand, it was not a great movie. How do you mess up a movie with a ride with its own established story this badly? It wasn't good. Or at least, what I should be saying is it wasn't what I was expecting. This is why I love the video game The Haunted Mansion so much, because it threw out everything about the movie and focused more on the ride. Yeah, you would never guess it by looking at it, but this is a movie tie-in game. A game that said, that movie, we're doing our own thing. And thank God it did. So the main character is a rather, Ichabod Crane-looking fellow named Zeke, whom has taken the job as assistant caretaker at the mansion. After being freaked out by the house's resident specters, he is taken to Madame Leota, who drops a whole bunch of exposition on him.
This house was once home to many friendly ghosts, but a powerful, evil man named Atticus Thorne has taken over the estate, corrupting the memories of many of the ghosts and turning others into evil spirits to serve his will. Our beloved mansion has become a dark and foreboding place, and we are now Thorne's prisoners, locked within it.
So naturally, in true video game fashion of people who just can't do anything for themselves, they outsource the problem to the first person who shows up, meaning it's now Zeke's responsibility to save the mansion because of course it is. Your weapon of choice in this game is a lantern. It's more threatening than it sounds. Your lantern actually serves as a firing device able to unleash rapid streams of energy at ghosts. Throughout the mansion, there are various gems you can collect which will power up your lantern to fire different forms of energy. You progress by going room to room, defeating the ghosts, turning on lights, and finding lost souls hidden in objects. Your lantern keeps track of how many souls you've collected, and how many are there, you ask? In keeping with the ride, 999. Ha! Classic. But the spirits do serve a purpose. They allow you to access new parts of the mansion. There are several doors that are blocked behind barriers, and you need a certain number of spirits to unlock them. And the rooms themselves are very creative, from candles that follow you around, to books appearing as a walkway, a room where the walls are shifting around. Yeah, there's a lot of creativity that went into this. And let's give it up for Zeke for having an awesome walk cycle. A variety of ghosts roam the mansion, from generic Halloween ones to skeletons in the graveyard who use broken coffin lids as shields. Well, that's kinda clever. But not all of them are bad. Basically, if you see a humanoid ghost, they're on your side, and they want the mansion rid of hostile spirits just as much as you do. And of course, we get iconic moments from the ride, such as the singing busts, the hitchhiking ghosts, and of course, the ballroom. And hey, you want to see a cool Easter egg? After you've cleared the ballroom, look up and you will see a doom buggy go by with people riding in it. Whoever programmed this in, I love you. So overall, I think this game is great, and I bring it out to play every now and then, especially around Halloween. Now all we need is for that new movie to be made. Come on, Del Toro, it's been 8 years, and you said you would get it out after you were done with The Hobbit. Where's the new Haunted Mansion movie, Del Toro? Sorry, I'm just passionate about the Haunted Mansion. It's my favorite ride at Disneyland. But while we're waiting for that movie, at least we have a great game to play. So when I was young, most of my friends had Ghosts and Goblins in their Nintendo collection, but truth be told, I don't think I ever actually played it. Yeah, I know it's seen as a Nintendo classic, but I didn't have my first experience with the series until the Super Nintendo title, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, which is a similar game, but different. It's kind of like comparing Mario 1 to Mario 3. Well, actually now that I think about it, it's more like comparing Mario 1 to Mario the Lost Levels. Or the real Mario 2, I guess. Well, anyways, I'll always remember the opening of this game because as a kid, this was one of the first games I ever played on the Super Nintendo, and just seeing Arthur running up to the castle with all the new 16-bit graphics, I was blown away by how nice everything looked. And then the build-up starts. We get a faraway shot of the castle, and with every strike of lightning, a demon appears, glooming at it in the distance. Arthur and the princess are romantically standing next to an obviously placed window, while something is getting closer and closer outside. As a kid, I was like, look out the window, it's getting closer, oh my gosh, it's getting closer! Ah, it's a demon, and he has the princess! And thus Arthur is off on his adventure. Now, it's no secret that this is one of the hardest games on the Super Nintendo, and it's easy to see why. Arthur really doesn't have a life bar. Basically, it's just 2 hits and he's gone. But there are a variety of power-ups you can get to help you out. If you get the armor upgrade, it gives you 1 extra hit, and even another armor upgrade that gives you golden armor, which comes equipped with a shield that you can block projectiles. The first level is so iconic to the series, and I don't know how war-hungry Arthur's king is, but it must be pretty bad because there are millions of dead people buried underground. Man, don't mess with this kingdom. And they're all rising from their graves to combat you. Dang zombies! The levels are really creative, and each one is different in its own way. I especially like the level where you run up the tower. It's just a really neat way of portraying a tower going upwards in a video game. It's pretty cool. And you gotta love that pose that Arthur does when he gets the key at the end of a level. Touchdown! So just like its predecessors, when you make it to the end, the princess informs you that you have to go back and do the whole game over again. But this time, the reasoning is that Arthur needs to find the goddess's bracelet to vanquish the final boss. At least this bracelet isn't too hard to find. It appears as a fairy in a random box the second time through, but you have to have the golden armor equipped. But once you have it, nothing can stand in your way. It obliterates all. So you go through the game a second time, rescue the princess, and ride home on a purple horse, because why not? What a fun game. It's too bad that Slenderman the movie didn't live up to expectations, but I am happy to say that something that does is the 2012 indie game, Slender, The 8 Pages. When this title was released, it was huge! The website it was being offered on crashed because too many downloads. Wow. So what's this game about? Well, you control a character wandering around the woods at night searching for pages that have been placed in random areas, such as on a wall or a rock. In each game session, there are 8 pages to collect, and the goal is to do so before getting found by Slenderman. With each page that is found, the more chaotic the environment becomes. And by which I don't mean what you see, but rather what you can't see. As you collect more and more pages, sounds like thumping, the wind blowing, and even beeping can be heard. These noises are designed to keep you in a state of uneasiness as it becomes harder to avoid the Slenderman. And if he catches you, it's game over. Now, do you have any weapons in this game? No. All you have is a flashlight and the ability to increase your walk to a run to avoid being caught. But don't think if you see Slenderman and run away in the opposite direction that he can't get you. He doesn't stick to a fixed path or anything like that. He can teleport to an area close to you, so leaving him behind you won't solve the situation for long. Now, after walking around for a while, you start to realize that the area you're in is really random. Like, what in the world does this place serve? You have some metal tankers, bathrooms out in the middle of nowhere, and I don't even know what this was trying to be. I'm sure in the universe this game is set in, this makes sense, but the true purpose of this place just stumps me. Now, something that's unlockable is daytime mode, which is basically playing the game, but in the day. It literally takes 80% of the fear out of the experience, but it's still really cool to be able to do. Imagine if other games like Friday the 13th or Until Dawn had a daytime mode. Don't get me wrong, Jason Voorhees walking around during the day would still be frightening, but not as bad as in the dark. Slender the 8 Pages is incredibly short, but it's also a lot of fun. It reminds me of those old arcade games that you can beat in 5 minutes, but still is an enjoyable experience. If this concept was created in the 80s, I could definitely see this fitting in local arcades. Find all those pages, but beware the Slenderman. Monster Party for the NES, or as I like to call it, how in the world in 1989 did this game make it past Nintendo censorship? The first level screen is dripping with blood. There's a scene with the main character's skin dissolving, and then halfway through the first level, this happens. What the heck, man? Everything turns bloody. Look at all the distorted faces and the blood dripping out of everything. My god! This is like one of those EXE games that makes rounds over the internet, not a Nintendo licensed title. Wow. Just wow. Okay, so we have a kid named Mark walking home from a baseball game when he is confronted by a creature named Bert. Kinda odd, doesn't really look like a Bert, but whatevs. So Bert asks for Mark's help in ridding his world from monsters. Mark goes along with him and fuses together with Bert, which provides the main play mechanic. Throughout the levels, Mark can transform into Bert for a limited time, and of course, Bert is 10 times better, being able to fire projectiles while Mark just has his baseball bat. The range isn't that great. You kinda have to be right next to the enemy, so plan on getting hit a lot. So boss fights in this game work in a different way. Well, for the most part, the final boss is just like a regular final boss battle, but others, it's optional, which is kinda weird. They don't take place at the end of each level, but instead tend to be scattered around the place in doorways. They are pretty cool though, ranging from a pumpkin-head ghost that looks like Salwayne from the Halloween episode of The Real Ghostbusters to a green minotaur. And some I just have to raise my eyebrow at. Like, there's this one boss that as soon as you go into the room, he's already dead. And he says that he's dead. What the heck went on in here before I arrived? And then there's a fight with a fried shrimp. Okay. And when you beat it, it turns into an onion ring. Is this a thing? Is this a thing? Are we gonna see the dreaded onion ring in the Dark Universe? What the heck is going on now? It's just weird. I should also address that this game was unreleased in Japan, however a prototype of what it would have been is floating around the internet, and it showcased several characters from horror movies, such as an ape from Planet of the Apes, a gremlin from Gremlins, a singing plant similar to the plant in Little Shop of Horrors, and even a xenomorph from Alien. Maybe the copyright material caused this not to get released, but then that doesn't explain why they didn't release the version that got released in America. Who knows? But I have to say, this game is so odd and out there that I can't help but like it. Never have I thought a game could be so mediocre and yet so cool at the same time. If you want to play one of the weirder, less talked about NES games, then play Monster Party. It's the game that everyone can collectively say, I can't believe they got away with this. Back in 2004, the Japanese film The Grudge was remade as an American film. And then a few years later, some game developer was like, hey, I got an idea! Let's slap Haunted House Simulator on the cover and sell it. And thus we have Ju-On the Grudge for the Wii. And honestly, you could take Haunted House Simulator off the cover because it adds nothing. I actually thought that I'd be getting a game where you could design your own scary house and then have others play it. You know, simulating a haunted house, like what the title says. But nope, misleading. So from what we get, is the game any good? Well, let's take a look. Ju-On the Grudge focuses on a family who have to deal with a curse by making it through their own individual levels. Now throughout the levels, you don't have weapons to fight off any of the ghosts or cat boys you may come across. All you have is a flashlight with the shortest battery life I've ever seen. Throughout the levels, you can find batteries to add your flashlight's life bar. Yeah, I said that correctly. Your flashlight is basically your life bar, and if it goes out, you die. So the point of all this is to make it to the end of the level before your batteries run out. So the ghosts of this game are the ghost girl and the boy that makes cat sounds, and throughout the levels, they make appearances to freak you out. The one that always got me was when you're in the first level walking along like normal, and then... Ah! Jeez! Whew! Still makes me jump. Just like last time. God. Just appear at the bottom of the screen in front. Give me a heart attack, jeez. But this is also a weakness of the game as well. If you've seen scary movies or games, then you know exactly when the jump scares are coming. One or two did surprise me, but the others I could see coming a mile away. I will give this game a little bit of credit because there is a two-player mode where the second player can mess with the first player to flash stuff on the screen to freak them out. And that's kind of a good idea. If they time it correctly, then it can be very effective. As for the controls, I'm really not a big fan, and truth be told, I was never a fan of the Wiimote in general. I don't know, it seemed like Twilight Princess and Mario Galaxy were the only big epics that the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck felt fluent on. Every other game that uses them just felt like a big chore, and this game's controls are definitely a chore. So you point the controller at the screen and the flashlight mimics your movements. Now in theory that sounds great, but here's the thing. To move, you have to hold down B and you will start walking in whatever direction the flashlight is pointing. And it just feels awkward, like you have no control over your movements. Had they assigned it to the analog stick, you could control your direction while also shining the light. I feel that that would have made it way better. Now I've been told that if you collect the right items or something, then it unlocks the final level, but honestly, I didn't really care. And that's the sign when you know that you're playing a bad game. When you just go through it just to finish it, not caring about what there is to unlock. Seriously, I was actually satisfied just playing the levels I was able to. But not to say that I don't recommend this game. It definitely did have its moments. I would say just rent it, if that's even a thing anymore. Girl from the Grudge? I think you're better off playing baseball. And yes, that actually happened. The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of monsters in school is that early 90s cartoon Gravedale High. Do you remember that one? A show about monsters going to high school? I watched it every Saturday. However, that's not quite what Ghoul School for the NES is about. The game starts and you play as a kid in school fighting monsters. So just like the original Legend of Zelda, if you don't have the instruction manual, you won't know the story. But here's some insight. Cool and totally rad high school senior Spike O'Hara, how do you like that name, finds a skull in a cemetery and shows his teacher. The skull then somehow transmits a signal to the realm of the dead, which brings all sorts of monsters to the school. And the driving force behind Spike defeating the monsters is that they have captured the lead cheerleader, Samantha Pom-Pom. You're kinda leading your child's destiny with a last name like that. So the main weapon you start off with is a bat, kinda like Mark in Monster Party. But scattered throughout the school are various weapon upgrades, like a towel, different types of guns, and you would think that a weapon with the name Deweytron would be something awesome, but look how many hits it takes to kill this enemy. Oh, come on! And you know what the thing is with this? If you have the towel equipped, it takes off more in half the time. Lame! Of course, not all items you collect are for attacking. You can also find spring shoes to help you jump higher, and suction cup shoes to help you stick to the ceiling. But shouldn't you be making a noise when you walk? You know, like... Imagine how old that would get. But while I'm on the subject of things getting old real quick, the score counter makes ticking noises every time it goes up. Ugh. So anytime you defeat an enemy, you hear this annoying quick ticking sound. I don't know whose decision this was, but having it be silent would be 10 times better. Listen to this! All you can hear right now is the score going up. Oh, come on! Jeez. Seriously? Ugh, finally. And how is it possible for the Grim Reaper to die? And notice how his ghost is floating upward, implying that he's going to heaven. Well, maybe I'm reading too much into this, actually. So you make it to the final monster and save Samantha Pom-Pom, and oh, by the way, you gotta love those expressions on her face. You save her life, and both of you stand and watch the spirits leaving the school. You take her hand, and what happens? Oh man, after all that, rejected! And I know, just because you save someone doesn't mean that they're obligated to date you, or even give you a little bit of that pixelated action, but even Mario got a kiss on the nose every now and then. But yeah, maybe that's a lesson that the kids of the 90s should be learning. In an era where the hero gets the girl at the end of the game, maybe by not getting her or receiving any type of reward, maybe, just maybe, Ghoul School was ahead of its time. But still, that sucks. Often considered one of the greatest survival horror video games of all time, Silent Hill was a landmark on the original PlayStation. While a lot of games around that time would try to scare you with what you would see, Silent Hill thrived on what you couldn't see, letting the chilling atmosphere itself do the scaring. So you control a man named Harry Mason who has lost his daughter, and it's your job to guide him all over the town of Silent Hill, both inside creepy buildings and outside, searching for her. He encounters an officer named Sybil Bennett, who gives him a handgun, which means he can now combat the various monsters that plague the town. And let's not forget those iconic nurses. Well, they don't look as freaky as they will later in the series, but whatever, we all gotta start somewhere. Whoa! What does that look like to you? Now, out of everything in this game, the atmosphere takes center stage. The thick fog and the gentle falling snow add so much to the experience, especially when you're going down the street and suddenly an enemy appears through the haze coming right for you. The lack of any music is also eerie, but what makes the surroundings even scarier is that you pick up a portable radio that emits static whenever a monster is close to you. The growing radio sound can really play with your mind, because you know that something is around, but it may be unclear where they're going to appear. Imagine what it would be like if they changed what the radio played. Haha, let's try that again. More! Okay, one more time.
I'm a banana, I'm a banana, I'm a banana. Look at me,
Yeah, that would suck all the fear out of the game. Now, one look at the camera and you would immediately think that it's terrible because it spins around and gives you all these awkward angles. And in any other game, I would agree. But in this game, it really works. Silent Hill already has a foreboding atmosphere, and an all-over-the-place camera adds to the experience. Almost like the camera itself is messing with your own sanity, keeping you in a state of uneasiness. The voice work on this game is a little off. Not saying that the actors are bad or anything, but the delivery is what's bothering me. It sounds like they're just reading from a script rather than acting out the conversation. However, it also might be because there are gaps left between sentences.
Hold it. Where do you think you're going?
My daughter. I've got to find her.
No way. It's dangerous out there.
In that case, I need to find her now. Cheryl's my little girl. I can't just leave her out there by herself.
Have you got a gun?
No.
So, maybe it's an editing thing rather than an acting thing? Either way, it's very distracting. So for its time, this was an awesome horror game. And sure, the genre has evolved since then, and several improvements have been made since the late 90s, but Silent Hill still stands on its own and is a blast to play. I always hated when people say that they can't get into games because the graphics aren't up to today's standards. But you know what? Good graphics does not a great game make. Always remember that. And go play Silent Hill for the original PlayStation. Have you ever thought of what kind of game you would get if Five Nights at Freddy's was injected with steroids? Oh, well, yeah, you would get Ultimate Custom Night, of course. I guess maybe smaller but still effective steroids? No? Well, you would get a game like The Joy of Creation. Man, this game got my heart going. No joke. Usually it takes a lot to really make me jump, but did this game ever accomplish the task? And I would say it's how aggressive the characters move towards you. You see, unlike the regular Five Nights at Freddy's games, where they just jump up and surprise you, these animatronics take off like a bat out of Tartarus, and you see them getting closer and closer, and the aggressive running combined with the loud clanking heightens your anxiety, so by the time you get the jump scare, you're already in heart attack mode. It's actually really brilliantly designed. So we got 4 levels, and each one takes place in a different area of the house. Similar to Slender, the 8 pages, your goal in each level is to find objects scattered around the map, while trying to avoid the ignited animatronics. Yeah, in this adventure that's what they're referred to as. So the first level, you're trying to avoid ignited Freddy in the hallways of a house. Then it's to the basement to deal with Bonnie. Chica is out in the woods surrounding the house, and Foxy is in the attic. Now mostly all the levels play the same, but with little differences. Like, while Freddy and Bonnie are basically the same, with the objective being trying to stay out of their peripheral vision, Chica and Foxy work a little differently. Chica is hiding somewhere in the woods, but when she approaches you, if you look at her, then she won't attack you. If you continue to ignore her and just collect the items, that's when she wants to mow you over. Foxy, on the other hand, as soon as you start the level, he comes right up to you and stands in ominous silence. Truth be told, this is more freaky than him running at you, because unlike the others, he's always right behind you, following you everywhere. So how do you stop him? Well, if you shine your light at him when his eyes are white, then it will deter him for a few seconds. If his eyes are red, you're basically doomed. Now you can play the game like normal, or just search the area and run away from the characters to see how long you can survive. And if you explore long enough, you might notice a variety of Easter eggs around, like the other characters standing outside the windows or in other locations, just watching you. And of course, if you want to jump, find a certain window on the Freddy level and one of them might sprint on by. This is one of those perfect games to play on Halloween, because it's simple, it's short, but it provides massive scares. Give it a play and see how long you can run from Freddy in the hallways. It really gets the adrenaline going. Fatal Frame 2. I will admit, this was the first game not to scare me, but to put me in a sense of dread. I felt some strong anxiety while playing it. Of course, my environment contributed a lot to that too. Okay, so at the time, I had one of those older TV sets where the picture was going out so the screen was darker than normal, so I had to turn out all the lights just so I could make out what was happening on the screen. And on top of that, it was the middle of the night that I decided to play it. So add all that up and it was quite the experience. I also love that there's this notice on the back of the case saying that you shouldn't play this game alone. Yeah, I can definitely see where they're coming from with that. So after all that build-up, what's this game about? The narrative centers around 2 sisters, Mayo and Mayu, who are just spending time in the woods, when Mayu decides to follow a crimson butterfly. Don't ever follow butterflies, man, them suckers are killers! So Mayu goes looking for her when they come upon a haunted abandoned village.
I wonder if anyone's here.
Oh snap, did you see that? Yeah, let that set the mood for the rest of the game. So once inside the first house, Mayu starts having visions of others who have visited the village in the past. That, and lots of other disturbing images. So as the game progresses, you learn that the village had a sacrifice ritual that didn't go as planned, and now the inhabitants' souls all wander around the place reliving their last night before their deaths. And it really adds a lot to the atmosphere when you're in the foreground and you see someone walking in the background. Creepy. So with the town full of these spirits, are you given any weapons to combat them? Yes. Enter the Camera Obscura, a special camera that's designed to ward off ghosts when you take their picture. Whenever ghosts appear, raise the camera and quickly take a picture. This will take care of the average spirits easily, but for the stronger ones, or boss spirits if you prefer, it will take multiple shots. And you know, going further into this game, I don't know what's more scary, the environment or the noises, because when you encounter the ghosts, the music and the sounds intensify, and creepy moans fill the area, and, man, it's just creepy, it's just creepy. Now one thing that might give you a hard time is the camera. Not the Camera Obscura, but the actual camera in-game. It's not terrible, Lord knows there are tons of games out there that do it 10 times worse, but it can be very inconvenient sometimes. especially when you're trying to see objects properly. Now, I won't go much into the story because this is a game that really adds a lot when you play through it and learn new things about what's going on, but I will bring up that there are reasons for replayability. Well, the obvious being that it's a good game, but there are multiple different endings depending on what you decide to do towards the final confrontation. And from a story standpoint, it's really interesting to see all the different outcomes. It's been said that this game is one of the scariest video games ever created, and I can definitely vouch for that. It's creepy, it's chilling, and it keeps you in an uneasy state all throughout, which makes it the perfect game to play on Halloween. And throughout this month of talking about video games sharing the theme of horror and Halloween, I wanted to put what I thought was the most scariest game on Halloween Day. And after much thought, I concluded that yes, it had to be Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly. Because honestly, I think out of all the games I talked about this month, this is the one that scared me the most.
Ha 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 ha!